It seems like the Cowboys get a big win and Cowboys fans absolutely lose their rocks. All of a sudden, the Cowboys defense is playing better, especially after Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence went down against the New York Giants. They came out and surprised pretty much the whole world with their performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. They played literally like lights out, y'all, and the run defense looks much improved from the state that it was in earlier this season. And this has fans saying some crazy stuff like we may be better off without Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence. Now, I halfway agree. I'm going to get into why a little bit later into this show. But first, let's go ahead and get into some Cowboys injury updates. A major return from one of our star players could be happening way sooner than anybody could have possibly thunk, and why that may actually be a bad idea. Let's get right into it, but first, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm not going to give y'all the whole spiel. Just subscribe. It's good Cowboys content on the regular. Before we get to today's show, be sure to check out BetUS, which happens to be the sponsors of today's video. By now, you already know BetUS is America's favorite sports book, and you can use BetUS to bet on your favorite NFL matchups, including the Cowboys Week 6 matchups with the Detroit Lions. Over-unders, odds, and point spreads have already been set, so be sure to check it out so you can place your wagers with BetUS and bet responsibly. Again, appreciate BetUS for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get right into this. First things first, Daron Bland has a real chance to play Sunday versus Detroit. This is absolutely amazing, especially since Jerry Jones literally came out earlier yesterday and said that he thought that it was a very slim chance that DB would be ready to come back, and in fact he projected that he would more so be ready probably after the bye week. Stephen Jones, however, came back and made a report on the radio appearance and said that Daron Bland has a real chance. I don't know if he'll play the whole game, but I think he's ready to start mixing it up, Stephen Jones said on Tuesday. Short of a real setback, Daron should be ready to dress and help us on the defensive side of the ball and the secondary. That is absolutely amazing. Now, I will say this. I don't know if it's super smart to rush DB back, especially with how one of the guys from the practice squad has been balling out. And trust me, we're going to have a special segment just for him. Be sure to subscribe so you can check that out a little bit later. But Daron Bland coming back, remember he led the NFL in interceptions last season with 9, including a single season record 5 returned for a touchdown. He had 5 pick sixes last year, y'all. This would be a huge buff against the Detroit Lions team that has a formidable wide receiver core consisting of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has some beef with J. Lou. He may want to watch out. J. Lou is a menace. We all see that. J. Lou is a menace. And Jameson Williams, as well as Sam Laporta. So the Lions ain't no chumps in the passing game, and they're going to test that Cowboys secondary, and they want blood. The Lions have been talking all offseason, and specifically, they've already started talking this week about how they're ready to mix it up with the Cowboys and get their revenge game back, right? So Daron Bland coming back, that would be an amazing boon to this defense. Now, albeit Stephen Jones did say in a limited role, I'm not really sure how helpful a cornerback coming back in a limited role could be. Is he only going to be playing on big downs, or like when is he actually going to be on the field? I guess that would be the question. How are they going to be using him? Is he just going to be there for insurance just in case one of the young guys that have stepped up in place of him and Kalen Carson, just in case one of those guys are playing badly? Is that why he's going to be there, so they can just sub him in and kind of just use him as a last-ditch effort to kind of cover someone up? I mean, if that is the case, then, I mean, I guess that can't hurt, but I just don't want him to rush back on the field if he's not ready. You do not want to mess around with foot fractures and anything dealing with bones. You don't want to mess around with it because you can easily re-aggravate that type of stuff, right? So, very, very interesting piece of information there. Jerry also spilled the beans on some other injury updates. For one, Tyler Guyton looks like he has a good chance to play against Detroit. So all of y'all that don't want him to play, go ahead and just put that hope back in your pocket, because it's not happening. Tyler Guyton is our starting left tackle, and he's going to be so. And Jerry and Steven have already pretty much said in response to those questions about, oh, are you going to move him around? They said, no, unequivocally, he is our left tackle. So y'all might as well dead that narrative. Micah Parsons is close to returning, but he's iffy for Sunday against the Lions. I think it's more likely we end up seeing him come out against the 49ers after the bye week, and hopefully we get a lot of guys coming back after that bye week, and the team is almost at full health, for whatever full health can be for a team that's missing guys for a season, right? And speaking of missing guys for the season, it kind of brings me to my next point here. Marshawn Kneeland actually avoided a season-ending injury, and he's going to IR, which is still kind of bad because he's going to be out for the next 6 or 8 weeks or so, but he's not going for the entire season. So the bad part is he's going to be gone for majority of the season. Majority of his rookie year is down the drain. It's going to be a forgettable rookie year for Marshawn Kneeland, unfortunately. The good part is he still will be able to play. He'll still be able to get some run, and it's just unfortunate that the Rook had to suffer a meniscus tear. And really, meniscus is like the best type of knee injury you can get because it's the least damaging knee injury. It just causes a little bit of instability in that knee, right? So he should be fine, but yeah, that just kind of sucks for the Rook. But a lot of people have taken that game that the Cowboys were able to pull off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people have taken that game and used that as a flashpoint to push the narrative that the Cowboys are better off without Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence. That the people that were trying to play Superman on the field, as Micah Parsons said, were actually one of those two guys. That those two guys were the ones missing the details that allowed the defense to actually play the way that they did for the most part over the last 2 weeks or so, right? Y'all may be partially right, but for the wrong reasons. For one, Micah really hasn't been that much of a negative in the run game this season. If you actually look at the statistics, Micah's actually been pretty good stopping the ball and stopping the run, and that actually hasn't been like a huge glaring weakness for him like it has been in years past. I will say that Micah's gotten better in that area. So a lot of y'all are saying that, oh, we don't need Micah because he sucks at stopping and run. He's actually getting better at that. Or we don't need Micah because he's the one playing hero ball. He's the one trying to be Superman. That's where there's some nuance to these type of discussions, right? I think that this time that Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence are both having to sit down is going to end up being one of the best things that ever happens to this defense, because it forces those two guys who are essentially battling for the leadership in that locker room, it forces those two guys to take themselves out of the equation and look at that team from the outside looking in, and it actually makes a player have to humble themselves, and it makes them hungrier to get back for sure. But when you see your team play better without you, that makes you have to humble yourself. And I think that that's probably going to help Micah more than anything, is if he sees his defense operating the way that Mike Zimmer envisioned it to operate, because he has practice squad guys out there. He has guys that are afraid for their jobs, that don't want to mess up doing anything because they know that they're at risk of getting cut at any given moment. He has those guys on the field, and those guys are following what Mike Zimmer wants them to do to a T, to the best of their abilities, play in and play out again. To the best of their abilities. They might not do it 100% every single play, but they're trying to execute what Mike Zimmer's vision is, right? And we see how that's turned out over the last 2 weeks. Now, albeit it's been against two pretty weak offenses, right? Now, I think we'll get a better test as far as what this defense really looks like against this Detroit Lions offense, because there's no excuses. They have a good run game and have a good passing game. So this Detroit Lions team is balanced as far as both ways of attacking the defense. There's no excuses for anybody as it pertains to if this defense actually shows up and looks good again. At that point, we can sit back as fans and say, we're starting to turn the corner. But Micah having to take that step back and see what this team is doing, see what it looks like for someone to just do what they're asked to do and not try to do too much, not try to overcompensate, not try to be a superstar on the field, but instead be a superstar in your role and let the impact that you're having in your role be so great that it makes you a superstar. Instead of actually trying to make superstar plays, be a superstar in your role, right? And I think that's kind of what we saw out of some of these guys over the last couple of weeks, especially the practice squad cornerback, Amani Oruwariye. He's been a superstar in his role. And we're going to talk about him in his own segment because he deserves that, ladies and gentlemen. He has been balling this year. This could be really good for Micah from a maturity standpoint, from a believing in the system standpoint. Same thing goes for the rest of the defensive guys. Those defensive guys, those depth pieces, those other role players on the defense, you don't think it's giving the whole team more confidence in what Mike Zimmer's trying to do when they see that it's actually working, when they actually execute what he's calling, when they actually execute the way that they're taught to do things, and it actually works as intended? You don't think that inspires more confidence in what those defensive guys are being taught by their 1-year lame duck defensive coordinator, Mike Zimmer? Absolutely. That's why this situation could end up being a huge blessing in disguise, as long as the guys that are involved in the situation directly take the lessons that need to be learned for what they are. Micah has to take this time to take this lesson that needs to be learned for what it is. I do not have to go out there and try to be a superstar. I just have to dominate in what I'm doing, and all the rest of that will come, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing that Micah's going to be able to learn from this situation. And this could also show the Cowboys, maybe we don't need Micah Parsons rushing the passer that much, because we got good pressure without Micah Parsons against the Pittsburgh Steelers. If that happens again against the Detroit Lions and he's not out there, maybe we don't need him constantly on the edge. Maybe that will inspire confidence as an organization to let him play off ball more and strengthen the defense in another way outside of just trying to have Micah Parsons out there as a sole pass rusher, right? So this could be good from multiple standpoints. From a D-Law standpoint, his contract is expiring after next season. I think D-Law has one more season with the Cowboys. This may be his contract. I think his contract expires after next season, though. If the Cowboys play well without D-Law, and the Cowboys defense continues to kind of develop a new identity while D-Law is out right now, because we're seeing a different kind of nastiness. That game we saw against Pittsburgh, we saw some more attitude, we saw more physicality. If the Cowboys are able to do that without D-Law on the field, it's a different situation for him. We all love D-Law, but it is a business. And at the end of the day, you do have two dominant alpha players trying to battle each other for leadership within that locker room. There needs to be an established hierarchy. There needs to be established structure. Whose role is what, and who is trying to set the tone? Who's the one setting the tone for the rest of the defense? That role has to be established. And during this period of time, if it's shown that we don't end up really needing D-Law, because he's going to be out longer than Micah, if it's shown that we don't really end up needing D-Law, then that could clear the way for this identity that this defense is trying to craft. That could clear the way for that to actually happen. And the Cowboys could finally get rid of the last remnant of the Hot Boys era of the Cowboys defense. And we know what kind of foolishness that came with, right? And there's nothing personal to D-Law. Again, we all love him. If he remains here, if he resigns, great. You know what I'm saying? Great. But I'm just saying, these type of situations could be more so blessing in disguise from a growth standpoint. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Micah Parsons needs to be on the Dallas Cowboys. This is not the reason you trade Micah Parsons. You see the defense play pretty well or whatever for a couple of games. You're like, oh, let's trade Micah Parsons. Same thing y'all did with Dak Prescott when Cooper Rush was out. This is the same type of effect. We're not even entertaining that conversation, bro, because it's ridiculous. You don't trade Micah Parsons for this reason. Now, if the defense plays well against Detroit, he doesn't play. Defense plays well against Detroit, then Micah comes back, and all of a sudden the defense falls off again, then questions will have to start getting asked. I will say that. I'm not the type of person that's going to make a take and just die on the hill. I am not a fool. I allow new information to change what I feel about things. And if Micah comes back and his defense looks completely different, they actually play well against Detroit without him, and Micah comes back and they look bad, and then D-Law comes back and they look worse, then we can really start entertaining some serious conversations. But as of right now, those conversations, there's no reason for those to be being had right now. Let's keep it a buck, y'all. But either way, same old Cowboys. Again, shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this video. I'll see you guys.
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still them boys? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Woo, oh, shut up, my boy. Hey, I'm still them boys.